The Simple Handicap for Friday, December 6th. Thank you for making me a part of your morning. I hope your Friday's off to a fantastic start as we look forward to a big weekend of football on deck. Before we jump into the market rundown for today, just want to touch on the game last night. And my God, what a game. On Thursday Night Football, it just feels like a treat. And it feels like something extra and special when you get a good game between good teams. And we got that for a full 4 quarters yesterday. Not much more needs to be said about the Detroit Lions. This coaching staff is awesome. Head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. It's from the top. It's all the way down. Everybody's bought in. Everybody's on the same page. Not only did we see them handle the end of game in a true Dan Campbell fashion, the math suggested that they kicked a field goal by about 4%. He clearly didn't want to give the ball back to Jordan Love. I think about what the Cardinals did in a slightly different spot against the Vikings last week, giving them the ball back up 6. Not trying to compare the tied game going up 3 to up 3 going up 6 mistake, but every week we see an example of a team giving the ball back and it's just cost them. And Campbell was not letting that happen, goes for it, even though he got burned earlier in the half trying to go for it in his own end. But not only that, how he handled the end game, how he handled the end of the first half, making sure that the Packers didn't get another possession, how he played that out, burning the timeouts, getting down to the goal line, scoring late, giving it back, forcing them to take a knee. It's just, they're so bought in, and it's an absolute treat to watch. And that was very impressive last night. I mean, all the injuries that everybody was talking about all week, rightfully so, they still come out. We're super aggressive. And all credit goes to Aaron Glenn on that, on defense. Some of the pressures and blitzes they timed up to get off the field early. They threw it all at Jordan Love early in the game. And that defense down, all of those guys, holds the Green Bay Packers to under 300 yards of total offense. And so a lot of credit goes to the defense for the Lions in holding in that game and getting them to win. I don't know if that's going to be the big takeaway, but that was certainly a great defensive effort from the Lions last night. I do think there is trouble ahead for the Bills game next week and the matchup. You think about how vulnerable this Aaron Glenn scheme is to mobile quarterbacks. Allen's certainly going to test them. When you think about some of the under center concepts that can test this defensive line, I mean, we're going to see the Bills really push that and test that quite a bit. So a big test survived tonight. A few extra days to get guys healthy. Big game on deck. Bit of a different caliber of an opponent in terms of how the Bills are operating right now. And that looks like it's going to be a big test. Now, for the Packers, this team is just so full of variance in every game they play. And I think it's only going to be exaggerated down the stretch as we continue to see them play in these types of games. But it is now 6 touchdowns, 2 in each game the last 3 weeks, where they have scored on fields of 30 yards or less coming off of change of possession or turnovers from opponents in their own end. And we saw the Lions give it back to them twice on short fields in the third quarter to really flip that game around and put the Packers on top. Same thing happened against San Francisco. Same thing happened again. It's every game. We see this defense, big plays, big stops, but also conceding big plays and struggling to get off the field. They're getting very thin in the secondary, suffered another injury. So that's something to watch as we go into next week. But it is just variance to the highest extent in all of these Packers games. And we saw a ton of over money late at the buzzer yesterday on that game. And that game flew over the total. I thought the halftime market, that was quite interesting too. In-play market was as well. The Lions were up 10 with possession. In-play number was 7. It's kind of hanging under what it should have been at that point. At halftime, that game opened Packers minus 2.5. It was 17-7 at the time. And I mean, before you could blink, it got up to 3 minus 125. It was a massive move at half and certainly came out of the gate. The Packers were flying and covered that number. But it was interesting to see how that game was bet down the stretch. And that's something that I kind of have circled thinking forward to next week. But that number we see on the Bills and Lions next week in a very great game to watch is one I'll certainly be keeping my eye on during the Sunday afternoon live stream based on what the Bills do playing a little bit later on the road at LA this week. As we move on from last night, we look ahead to Sunday for the final market rundown of NFL week number 14. The attention goes to Minnesota, where the Vikings are hosting the Atlanta Falcons. This game touched 6 at DK, it touched 6 at Jazz. A few other places were 6 earlier in the week. None of these 6s are lasting. And so we've seen Vikings money at anything less than 6. Falcons money back at anything 6 or higher. Total in this game, it's been steady all week, 45.5. Not much to talk about on either side of the football. Not much to talk about in terms of the line move that we haven't already touched on so far this week. I have Minnesota in this game personally. Was a loss on Detroit, -3.5 yesterday. And so hopefully this is a game that gets things started off right on Sunday morning. Saints on the road at the New York Giants. New Orleans -4.5 across the board. Total 41 in this game. Giants just piled up with injuries. We're talking about the Lions being injured for the New York Giants. Not only did a couple guys go on IR, but you're looking at Malik Neighbors again on a Thursday. It's been odd how they've handled him. He was added back to the injury report with a groin injury. Still looking at Illuminor limited in his return to practice. Evan Neal still limited. Okereke, Banks, Nunez, Roaches, all DNPs. Bevy of injuries for the New York Giants. Kendre Miller, a full participant in practice on Thursday. A lot of variance in his prices that I see at DK plus 295, at FanDuel plus 460 for the anytime touchdown score. Yesterday afternoon on the live stream that I was doing, talked about kind of split in the middle there. Anything 4-1 or better that you can find with Miller for a touchdown was something that I was looking at yesterday, along with the Laporta first quarter stuff that was discussed. And so if you haven't bet the Miller prop, I think with all of the information that has been discussed and all the commentary from Rizzi in his pressers, worth a flyer this week, similar to Parker Washington last Sunday. And so if you're looking at your book and you see that price for Kendre Miller at 4-1 or better, or you have the FanDuel price, I certainly think that that is worth a flyer in this game, given the Giants' defensive line injuries. Lost their best defensive lineman last week in the game, and you have all these other injuries with the Saints wanting to run the ball. If any part of what Darren Rizzi is saying is true about trying to get Miller more involved in this offense, he's certainly going to have an opportunity at some point in this game. Jacksonville on the road at the Tennessee Titans. This is Titans 3.5 across the board with a total in this game of 40. Titans injury report, pretty grim as it comes through Thursday on the big day of practice. No Tyler Boyd at practice, but on the defensive side, Sweat, Murray, Williams, McCreary, and Awuzie, all limited or non-participants in practice yesterday on Thursday. So some key names piling up with injuries for the Tennessee Titans defense that, quite frankly, a week ago certainly showed a few signs of checking out, certainly against the run in that game against Washington. Las Vegas on the road at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bucs are back to 7 at Chris, back to 7 at Circa. Buckeye, 7 even money, 46 to total, left to right across the screen. Wednesday was a walkthrough practice for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So yesterday was the first full day of practice on field for Tampa Bay of the week. Mike Evans was a DNP. He has the hamstring injury that's been existing for the last couple of weeks, added back onto it with a calf injury. What I don't know, same leg as what he had the hamstring with. It's common that you see that when a hamstring injury gets pushed back, the calf takes more of a burden. That could potentially be what this is. Very tough guy, a vet, not uncommon for him to be not participating early week in practice, especially at this point in the season, at this mark of his career. Today will be more telling. There wasn't any sign that he would not be able to play this week. And so I think the Thursday practice was taken a little bit out of context because Wednesday was a walkthrough. Let's see if he makes the field today. I get the impression that he probably will. As we move down the board, we see Cleveland on the road at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers still a very soft 7-point favorite across the board, with a total in this game shaded lower, down from 44 to 43.5 this morning. Carolina on the road at the Philadelphia Eagles. Devonta Smith practicing in full. Looks like the Eagles will have their wide receiver number 2 ready to go. Also looking at Dallas Goedert as a DNP. Kind of was anticipated he would not play, but Darius Slay back practicing in full, dealing with concussion and the protocol. Something to keep your eyes on is Reed Blankenship, safety who's looked great in the concussion protocol. Seems less likely than likely that he is going to play. All of that said, we see Eagles money into the market up to 13 and even 13 minus 115 at Chris and DK as well this morning. New York Jets on the road at the Miami Dolphins. This is still sitting at Miami minus 5.5 across the board with a total of 44.5. Sauce Gardner looks like he is going to be ruled out a little bit later today. Breece Hall still not participating in practice for the Jets, and so injury concerns on the defensive side and the offensive side to two stars. Still the Jets getting bet in market as dog money continues to come in on this game. Seattle on the road at the Arizona Cardinals. Spooky injury report for some yesterday as Zach Charbonnet was a full participant, but Kenneth Walker with an ankle and a calf injury, a downgrade for him. Late week in practice, non-participant yesterday. Same thing goes for DK Metcalf and Leonard Williams. Metcalf and Williams, both guys that should be expected to be out there later today. Also worth noting, pass rusher Nwosu was activated from injured reserve. He was a full participant yesterday. So this defense that has been improving for Seattle gets back another weapon in Nwosu this week to take on the Arizona Cardinals and the sensitive to pressure in the pocket, Kyler Murray. Buffalo on the road at the LA Rams. It was LA money creeping into the market yesterday. 4.5s and 4s are gone. Down to the Buffalo Bills, minus 3.5, minus 105 at Chris. Yesterday morning, the move took place, wiped out any 4s that were left on the board. Total still holding steady at 49.5. Limited participation for Kincaid, Coleman, and Samuel for the Buffalo Bills. The debate and kind of where this line is starting to move now that Matthew Stafford is back and practicing in full, and that scenario seems off the table that there's any chance he misses. The intention kind of turns to Buffalo with them unclear on the status of what they're doing with some of these wide receivers. When I think about some of the look-ahead lines and what we were seeing where we had the Bills next week at the Lions and the Lions installed as a 2.5-point favorite. If you see guys like Kincaid and Coleman not suit up this week, it's likely because the Bills, with the playoff clinching or looking forward, kind of not rushing these guys back. It was implied that both of them could be able to play this week, last week, and the week prior as kind of a circled target date. Would expect those guys to be back next week, and what impact will that have on the opener? I certainly think it's going to be noteworthy if they don't play in this game, and we're looking forward to next week with the possibility that they return, perhaps not going to be taken into account with that initial opener that we see on Sunday evening. Chicago on the road at the San Francisco 49ers. Still San Francisco 4 across the board with a total of 44 shaded lower. Seems like a growing possibility that we are not going to see DJ Moore on the field for Sunday. Nothing confirmed yet, but back-to-back DNPs for the leading wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. Same thing for DeAndre Swift. Leading rusher, leading receiver, neither have been at practice this week yet for the Chicago Bears. Ryan Bates, offensive lineman, still a DNP as well. San Francisco, plenty of issues with Leonard Williams, Nick Bosa, and others. Still DNPs. Injuries both sides here. I don't know what to make of the Bears' injury status. If we see Moore and Swift upgraded later today, I think the 4s are going to be taken out on this game, and we see it get to 3.5 or perhaps slightly lower. That's the way that I could see this trending. I'd be very surprised if Bosa or Williams are upgraded and we see anything positive from those two guys. And so to me, looking at 4 at Chris circa Buckeye this morning, I think there's a better chance we see this come down off the 4 and back to 3.5 than we do see this increase throughout the day today. And maybe there's a difference of opinion as we get to Sunday and we get into the afternoon and the early games kick off, and this is at a cheaper 3.5. There could be disagreement and buyback on the Niners, but it does seem like these 4s are going to go away as today progresses. LA Chargers on the road at the Kansas City Chiefs. Ladd McConkey in sweats again at practice yesterday for the Chargers. Injury doctors across Twitter believe that he is going to play. What percentage is he going to be at is very unclear and yet to be determined. He's played through a lot of injuries throughout his career in college. Dealing with multiple injuries at the moment, has yet to be anywhere close. Even limited participation is kind of a generous tag through 2 days this week. Have to wait and see what that is going to be, but it is Chiefs money that it showed yesterday. No more 3.5s on the board as this is up to 4 for Kansas City. And then Monday Night Football, Cincinnati on the road at the Dallas Cowboys. 5.5 still the spread for Cincinnati, 49.5 now the total with no more 50s showing on the board. CeeDee Lamb says despite an AC joint injury, he is expecting to play on Monday Night Football. That will do it for me today. I hope everybody has a fantastic Friday. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Just hoping that the Vikings, Eagles, and Chiefs cooperate on Sunday, especially the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. I'll be back with a live stream over on the YouTube channel after the late games conclude on Sunday afternoon to react to all of the opening odds for NFL Week number 15, and anything that happens on Week 14 we will discuss in the recap as well. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll chat to you Sunday afternoon.